Welcome to the debate from GiltEdge.uk. Before we begin, this content is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Always do your own research and consider seeking independent financial advice before making any investment decisions. Your capital is at risk. Today, the Guardian and the Challenger go head-to-head on, the footsie is down 11% since Iran, your savings account doesn't care. Let's get into it.
£8,800, that's what every 80,000 invested in UK equities has lost since Iran escalated in early March. Meanwhile, a basic savings account is paying 4.5% with zero capital risk and full FSCS protection.
And every single time markets drop like this, someone makes exactly that argument. People move to cash, and 6 months later stocks have recovered while the cash movers have permanently locked in their losses.
This isn't a routine 3% pullback though. The Strait of Hormuz is half closed, oil is pushing petrol past 150 pence a litre. This is a genuine geopolitical crisis with real economic consequences.
The Gulf War, the invasion of Iraq, the Crimea annexation, every one of those was a genuine geopolitical crisis too. The footsie recovered from all of them. The historical record on this is unanimous.
Sure, but the equity risk premium has effectively collapsed right now. Why would you accept the volatility of stocks when cash is paying 4.5% risk-free? The maths doesn't justify staying in equities.
Because the maths of missing the recovery is devastating. The best days in the market almost always cluster right after the worst days. Miss just the 10 best days over a decade and your returns get cut in half.
That's a lovely stat, but it assumes you can't get back in. I'm not saying abandon equities forever, I'm saying hold cash defensively while the crisis plays out and re-enter when the smoke clears.
And when exactly does the smoke clear? Nobody rings a bell at the bottom. By the time you feel safe getting back in, you've already missed the sharpest part of the recovery. That's how it works every single time.
I'd rather miss the first 5% of a recovery than eat another 10% of downside. That's not panic, that's risk management.
No, that's market timing dressed up as risk management. You're making two bets now, when to get out and when to get back in. Getting both right is nearly impossible.
It's not market timing to look at a genuine crisis and say the risk-reward has shifted. 11% down with an active military conflict and oil supply disruption, the downside risk is clearly asymmetric here.
But the Iran crisis has a shelf life. These geopolitical shocks always do. Oil supply routes adjust, diplomacy kicks in, and markets price in the new reality faster than most people expect.
You're assuming this resolves quickly. What if it escalates? What if there's a full closure of the strait? You're gambling on a best-case geopolitical scenario.
And you're gambling on a worst case. The difference is my gamble has a century of market history behind it. Staying invested through crises has outperformed panic selling in virtually every documented case.
I actually agree that long-term equities outperform, that's not the debate. The debate is whether right now, today, a defensive cash position makes sense when you're being paid 4.5% to wait on the sidelines.
4.5% nominal. What's inflation running at with oil spiking? Your real return on cash might be 2% or less. That's not the safe haven people think it is. Cash has its own risks, they're just invisible.
Fair point on inflation, but a 2% real return with zero volatility still beats a negative 11% capital loss. At least my purchasing power is roughly preserved.
It's only a loss if you sell. That's the whole point. An 11% paper decline in a portfolio you don't need to touch for 15 years is noise. Converting it to cash makes it permanent.
That works if you're 30 with decades ahead of you. But if you're 55 with retirement in sight, an 11% hit to your portfolio is not noise, it's potentially years of extra work.
Then the problem is your asset allocation, not the crisis. If you're 55 and fully exposed to equities, the Iran conflict didn't create your risk, it just revealed it.
That's actually a fair point. But plenty of people are in that position, and telling them to just ride it out isn't helpful advice when they're watching their retirement fund shrink in real time.
I agree we shouldn't dismiss the fear. But the answer is rebalancing and diversification, not a wholesale move to cash. There's a huge difference between adjusting your allocation and panic selling.
So what would you actually tell someone who's down 11% right now and can't sleep at night?
I'd say check your time horizon, make sure your emergency fund is solid, and if your allocation genuinely doesn't match your risk tolerance, adjust it, but don't sell everything into cash at the bottom of a crisis.
And I'd say there's no shame in taking some chips off the table when you're getting paid 4.5% to do it. Discipline isn't just about staying invested, sometimes discipline means protecting what you've built.
We might actually agree more than we disagree. I just think the bigger danger is the permanent cost of panic, not the temporary pain of a drawdown.
And I think the bigger danger is treating every crisis as a buying opportunity when this one has fundamentally different characteristics. Your future self will thank you for caution right now.
Your future self will thank you for not locking in an 11% loss and then watching the recovery from the sidelines, because that's what the evidence says happens next.
The Guardian, The Challenger, thank you both. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Read both articles in full at gilt-edge.uk. Thanks for listening to the debate.